FromSoftware recently held their network test where a select few could play Elden Ring Nightreign early. I was lucky enough to get my hands on it, and today I'm going to get into what Nightreign is, the gameplay, the different classes, and ultimately what my first impressions are of this brand new multiplayer spin-off that is set to release later in May. So today I'm going to go into my first impressions of Elden Ring Nightreign. Well, if you enjoyed this video, then subscribe for more Elden Ring content here on Endgame Express. So while you can play multiplayer co-op in Dark Souls and Elden Ring FromSoftware, they are experimenting with something brand new, taking inspiration from Battle Royale and roguelike games to create something that feels like Elden Ring, but is structured in a very different way. Roguelikes have exploded in popularity over the last few years with Hades, Dead Cells, Vampire Survivors and Balatro. We've seen AAA games experiment with this before with God of War Valhalla, and now FromSoftware are experimenting themselves. Nightreign's gameplay loop is fast and furious, and it's also fun action as well. Rather than you build your own character and assign stats like we did in the main Elden Ring, here we're picking from predetermined classes. I'm going to go through those later on in the video, but that is a risky move, but it does make sense given the fast-paced nature of Nightreign. So in the network test we had access to only 4 of the character classes, but there's going to be 8 when the full game releases on the 30th of May. Bosses are pretty limited too, and we didn't really see any of the dynamic effects with the environment. They're clearly saving some of the surprises for the full release later on in the year. So this was all about the load testing and the network performance for FromSoftware so they can tune their systems to ensure the best play experience. Okay, so let's have a look at the gameplay loop. So Elden Ring Nightreign runs are in 3 in-game days, and each day lasts about 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, and on the 3rd day you get sent to a new location, you get to see a blacksmith, allowing you to make any adjustments that you need before you go and fight the final boss. So you start much like you would in Fortnite, dropping in with a glider, and you decide where to land with your team. Very similar to Fortnite. You can open up your map, you can place a marker, and that is a good way of directing your teammates. So teams are made up of 3 players, and I think in the final game you will be able to go in solo. I don't think duos are available just yet, although there has been quite a lot of feedback about that, and I would imagine they'll probably add that later. So when you land on the ground, a fire circle surrounds the map and quickly starts to shrink. Very similar to a Battle Royale. So as the circle is shrinking, you want to go around gathering resources, beating enemies, collecting runes and leveling up as fast as you can. And once the circle finishes shrinking, then it's time to take on the first boss at the end of day 1. Defeat that boss and the circle starts again on day 2. And from what I could see in the network test, the map is static at the moment. However, the enemies, the loot, the events, and the bosses, they change each run, making sure you get a nice bit of variety each time. It's important to level up really quickly, and this is done in a similar manner to Elden Ring. Kill enemies, clear camps, get runes. Leveling up early is super important as that doubles up your health pool, and ideally you want to be aiming for level 12 when entering day 3. So compared to Elden Ring, it is a frantic rush. So in Elden Ring, you've got time to be much more methodical. Here in Nightreign, you're sprinting, jumping up walls, finding loot at speed, aiming to level up as quickly as possible. And when you level up, the allocation of stats is automatically applied to your character based on your class. So it is different to the main game, where you can control each stat individually. Here, you're just leveling up, and it's very quick, it's very frantic, much like the rest of the game. Once you've taken down a few camps and leveled up at a site of grace, then maybe it's time to take on a larger encampment or a field boss for some more runes. You've got the churches of Marika around the map, allowing you to get more flask charges, and it's a good idea to get these before the circle closes in and makes these unavailable. FromSoftware have implemented a ping system to allow for comms, even if you don't want to get on the mic, similar to something like Apex Legends. Every time you and your team come across a destination on the map, there's quick decisions to be made. Do you jump in and try and get as many runes as possible? Or is the fight too much of a risk because the circle is closing in behind you? So I was in the middle of a fight with a Fell Omen, and I had to actually abandon that fight because the circle was closing in. We nearly got him down, and it would have been good to get that loot. However, just had to abandon it to get back into that circle. So you've got castles, you've got jails, you've got camps, towers, everything you remember from Elden Ring. It's all here, just with a little bit more risk added. Next up, let's have a look at the loot and progression. So the loot system is pretty interesting in Nightreign. Each piece of gear comes with passive effects, and that builds up throughout your run. If you've played any roguelike, then you're going to be familiar. You don't have to worry about load weight, and gear doesn't have any stat requirements to use. Once again, breaking down the barriers and focusing on the speed of the gameplay. That means throughout a run you can pick up a massive variety of weapons, which would be near impossible in Elden Ring due to the stats restrictions. Bows have got infinite ammo, and magic users can quite easily top up their FP. When you defeat a boss, you can select perks. For example, you might have party healing on flasks, or fire can come up from the ground where you walk. Those perks provide major incentives to defeat bosses. It's all about weighing up that risk and reward. Completing world events also gives you perks, plus also you may have an invasion from a major boss to spice things up. If you or one of your teammates die, then you've got to damage them with a weapon to revive. The more you die, the longer it takes to revive, meaning as the clock runs down, reviving can become quite frantic. If players aren't saved in time, then you're going to lose levels, but you can pick up the lost runes. So as you make your way through the days, you don't want to be losing levels. So some gear passives only open up after certain thresholds have been met. For example, if you reach level 10, you're going to get X perk. At the beginning of the game or in between matches, you've got the round table hold. And there's something called the Relic Rights Holder, where a combination of relics you picked up can be equipped for each character. These relics drop at the end of matches, or you can find them from chests, and these have got decent bonuses in, for example, Scarlet Rot build-up or decreasing the cast time for spells. So we've got so much more to learn about the relics, as it looks like there is some kind of currency requirement, and also different colour codings, and that may refer to the rarity or compatibility with different character classes. FromSoftware, they've been keeping pretty quiet about this so far, so it may be saved for the final release. Next up, let's have a look at the character classes. So rather than build your own character here in Elden Ring Nightreign, you are picking from a predetermined character. They've got predetermined stats and also allow you to lean into specific styles of play. So first of all, the Wilder. This one is the all-rounder. The Wilder starts out with a great sword and a buckler, and this is a great starting character if you're not used to Elden Ring. His passive ability includes taking a free hit, can be very, very useful in battle. His active ability is a hook shot that can pull towards an enemy or pull smaller enemies to him, and also can be used on the environments to climb quickly as well, although climbing quickly isn't really a problem in Nightreign. And then you've got the Wilder's ultimate. It's a big hit, and that can break poise on bosses and also enable a critical strike. Next up we've got the Guardian. So this one is a tank character. Also this is a massive bird or eagle with a great shield and a spear. His passives allow him to take a fortified stance, and his shield absorbs big damage from enemies. His active ability creates a whirlwind that can fire smaller enemies into the air and deal damage to bosses, and his ultimate allows him to fly high in the sky and then dive bomb down to cause damage. Next up we've got the Duchess. This is the rogue character with a dagger, and their passive allows for dodging twice in quick succession. Her active ability replays 2 seconds of damage, can be very, very good, especially if you coordinate this with your team, and also her ultimate is casting a veil over herself and the team, allowing them to become nearly invisible. Finally, we have the Recluse. So this one is quite a complex character, but also very rewarding if you can do a little bit of practice. So this is your typical magic user, and you start out with a staff, and her main mechanic is to absorb elements inflicted on enemies. Each time she does, she also recovers FP. When 3 have been absorbed, this ability becomes a new spell for her to cast based on the combination, and her ultimate marks an enemy, and when they are damaged it heals the attackers. So we didn't get a look at all the characters. Here we've got 4 in the network test, but in the main game we're going to get 8. The ones that we do have feel pretty balanced, and there's a good variety of playstyles. Okay, next up, my overall impressions of the network test. So I did like the variety of the character classes. I normally play Sword and Shield in Souls games, so it's good to try out the Rogue and the Mage characters, and I do look forward to what other character classes are going to be coming. I enjoyed the combination of no fall damage, high jumping pads, and mantling on the rocks or quick climbing. And it felt like you could easily get across the environment with little getting in your way. Well, next up is very, very fast. So I understand you have to make the character fast as a replacement for Torrent. We don't have a horse in Elden Ring Nightreign, but the whole thing just feels very, very quick. And I do wonder if the player speed and the day length could do with some tuning. Talking about the day length, it does feel fast to the point where I didn't really get to take it all in. It just feels like such a rush to the end. I don't really have time to look at my build. I don't know if the days need to be longer or there needs to be a timeout where I can look at my build or take a little breather or something like that, but I just felt quite rushed, and after a few games that didn't feel very good. The rarities of the weapons didn't feel obvious, and upgrading the weapons should be easier and quicker. Now, I looked at the damage numbers to understand if a weapon was better or not. Perhaps, something could be done in the UI to make the weapon rarities a little bit more obvious. For example, I want to quickly know a weapon that I find is better than the one that I have. So I did like the map, it was varied and it had great verticality. Really enjoyed that. I wonder if the game would benefit from a third day before the big boss fight. So I think I'll be able to handle 1 hour full playthroughs through the full 3-day cycle. During the network test, I only did one complete cycle with random players. So I got to the end of day 2 a couple of times to face the boss, and I did enjoy the overall structure, but again, it felt a little bit fast and it felt a little bit rushed. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with Elden Ring Nightreign. There's definitely something here, and it feels very good. Now, it feels like Elden Ring just charged up to the max, turned up to 11, almost like Elden Ring was filled with superheroes or something. So games like this are going to live and die by their player count, so it definitely would be good to take on board the feedback from players. The main points of feedback for me were the speed, and that leading to feeling rushed, and probably that's not going to feel good over time. Also the loot rarities not being that obvious. Otherwise, it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate having an early look in the network test. Well, Elden Ring Nightreign is due for release on the 30th of May 2025 on PlayStation, PC and Xbox. And let me know down in the comments what you think. Well, that is it for the video today, looking at my first impressions of Elden Ring Nightreign. And as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Elden Ring content here on Endgame Express. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next video.